CIP or talking about taking it, removing that tonight, correct?
Nope, that'll be on that.
Okay.
There'll be a public hearing on it.
Alright.
So since there's a public hearing on it, you won't talk about it at the general.
So,
Okay. Not a problem at all.
oh well,
Is that normal?
no, that's not. Where's that? I don't know.
Sometimes that happens
Delayed.
when there's a YouTube open or something.
Oh, take on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or when the YouTube's got a sound or something?
Now we know.
Yeah,
How
we
many times?
ran into it so many times.
There we go. It was ghosting.
Oh.
Interesting.
What about on Edge?
Oh, I closed out of it.
That clock's a little slow, actually.
Okay, start recording.
Yes, I'm watching it on here.
Still has the echo though. Oh, wow. What? May I see the mouse? Yeah, there was a second window open, it's closed then. Okay.
Calvin, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Just a moment.
Those YouTubes.
Oh, I just closed it.
There we are. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just had to get something off the printer here for roll. So, good evening. The October 10th, 2024 Whatcom County Planning Commission meeting is called to order. I'll call the roll. Kelvin Barton, that's me. I'm here. Atul Desmani.
Here.
Sunita Eisenberg.
Here.
Jim Hansen.
Here.
Stephen Jackson. Stephen Jackson. Okay. Frank James.
Here.
Julie Jefferson. Julie Jefferson. Dominic Masseri.
Here.
Scott Van Dalen.
Here.
All right, thank you. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so it's time now for department update. Assistant Planning Director Steve Roberts, would you give us the planning department update?
Yeah, thanks, Kelvin. So earlier today, we sent out an email about attendance. There have been some questions about that. We just realized actually just a few minutes ago that there's a few issues with some of the formulas in that, so we'll send out a revised version of that tomorrow with those corrected. Sorry about that. Also with that, with the business rules, all of that sent out for your consideration. And like I say, we've had some questions and some concerns about that, just making sure we have a quorum. The planning commission, sent forward a resolution to the council in regard to the heavy impact industrial zone. So the council is set to have a discussion about that, an introductory discussion about that at their next meeting on the 22nd. So they'll be talking about that as well as the resolution that you sent them. The next items for the planning commission at your next meeting on the 24th. We'll be talking about open space. Those of you that have been around for a few years know that conversation, but we'll be looking, we have 4 applications for open space, so we'll be looking at those. We'll also be talking about Lummi Island height limitations. And those will be the next items on your agenda. You asked us at the last meeting to post the presentations from the planning commission, and we're doing that. But I have to admit, I couldn't initially find them, so Eileen's gonna take just a couple of minutes here and show us how to find those. So we're posting those after each meeting, but you have to kind of know where to look for them. So Eileen, can you take us away and
Yes.
show us where to see those?
I'm gonna share my screen. Can everyone see that? Yeah. Okay. So if we go to the planning commission page on the county website, it'll be under planning commission meeting materials. And then we have this lovely chart. It'll have the meeting date, what the topic was, the agenda center, and then it would have the comments. So last meeting we had the presentations, it would be under additional meeting materials. And then I'll have the 2 presentations.
And so what we'll do when we send out the revised attendance tomorrow, I'll send a link to that so you can find it directly.
Yes, and if it helps, I can always put a link on the landing page for the planning commission, so that way it'd be easier as well. I can do that. You'll also see the comments. I'll write it down. So like last time, there was like a ton of comments that came in at once. They will always be posted as well. Right after I send it to all of you, I put it on the website, so that way it's easier for everyone to see. And it's by last name and what the email was about. So that's another way to get your comments and the agenda if you need to.
So that's great. Like Elaine said, we'll put that then on that landing page so it's easier to find.
Yes.
Right.
Sounds good.
And then the last thing I have, Kelvin, I just want to let you guys know, I have enjoyed my time here with the county. I'll be here through the end of the month, so I'll be here for one more meeting, but I'm leaving Whatcom County. I think it's been great. I love Whatcom County, just moving closer to family. So I've taken a position in Eastern Washington. But again, thank you for all your time, and I'm not gone yet. I'll be here for your next meeting and for the rest of the month.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve. So now is the time for open session for public comment. And Eileen, our planning commission coordinator, would you take over?
Yes. Welcome to the meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. As noted on our website, members of the public may watch the meeting or join online or by phone. During the open public comment session, speakers may not speak to the items that are scheduled on the agenda for public hearing tonight. The public hearing will be about the CIP, so that is not discussed in this public session. If you would like to provide public comment at this time, we will take comments from those in the room first. Would you like to provide a public comment, or would you wait for the public hearing?
I'll wait for the public hearing.
Okay. There's no other, members of the public, joining us in the room. And I do not see any attending remotely.
Right. Thank you, Eileen. So now it's time for commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Hanson.
I'd like to report that I had a discussion with Council Member Galloway about topics related to the heavy industrial zone in North Bellingham.
Commissioner Deathmani.
I just wanted to say that I'm sorry to hear that we're gonna lose you, Steve. I think you've been great, and I'm sure you'll do great where you're going. And best wishes to you and your family and your move. And I'm gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments?
Kevin, I do.
Go ahead.
Steve, what's it look like for your replacement then, or who's gonna be covering your duties?
So, yeah, great question. So in the immediate, Mark Personius, the director, will be covering the long range stuff. I'm not sure, we haven't quite decided on what that looks like long term, but at least the immediate will be coming along.
Okay. And then, any more commissioner comments? Okay, I want to ask a question. I think I'm getting the camera angle that I can see Commissioner Masseri and Commissioner Van Dalen is to your right. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and it, as the camera pans, it leaves him out, part of the time. Part of the time it picks you both up, and then part of the time it doesn't. And if he needs to talk and I'm not seeing his hand, Commissioner Masseri, would you just put yours up, and then you can tell me that
There we go.
Commissioner Van Dalen wishes to speak.
We'll try to outsmart the owl. I'm not sure if it's gonna work. It moved.
It rotates back and forth.
Try.
It's too smart, Kelvin. I don't know if we can beat it.
Yes.
It's hearing our
It's a-
typing, so it's zooming in on us instead of both of you, so you have to make more zoom.
It's a fine example of AI.
That's why I hate AI. Let's go on record.
Okay, so we are at the point approval of the minutes for the September 26, 2024 meeting.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have 2 or 3 seconds there. I'm not sure which one it was. Eileen, were you able to get that?
Yes, I have Masseri.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, is there any corrections, any discussion? Okay, seeing that there's no corrections and no discussion. Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Eisenberg,
Yes, approved.
James,
I'll have to abstain. I wasn't present.
Masseri,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Deshmani,
Yes,
Hanson,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
So we're to the point of our public hearing and work session. And I believe planner Lucas Clark is going to take the first part of that. Go ahead, Lucas.
Sure, I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. There you go. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, good. Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Lucas Clark with Planning and Development Services. Tonight, I'm talking about capital facility planning, specifically the capital improvement program for county facilities from 2025 to 2031. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the why and the what of the capital improvement program, or CIP. First, we'll look at a couple of Growth Management Act, or GMA, provisions relating to capital facilities. The GMA was adopted in 1990. At that time, there was a rapid development in Western Washington. As this was occurring, jurisdictions sometimes had difficulty making infrastructure improvements necessary to serve development. One of the ideas of the GMA was that public facilities and services should keep pace with development that was occurring, as reflected in Planning Goal 12. The idea is we shouldn't let infrastructure continue to degrade below community standards as growth occurs. Rather, we should coordinate land use planning with capital facility planning through the 7-year capital improvement program and other mechanisms. The GMA states that a comprehensive plan must have certain elements, and these elements must be internally consistent. One of the required elements is the capital facilities plan. The GMA specifies what must be included in each of these elements. For capital facilities, the plan must include an inventory of existing facilities, like a list of the facilities, often including the acreage of land or building square feet. A forecast of future needs. This can be based on level of service standards or other planning assumptions. Proposed facilities, plans for parks, corrections facilities, stormwater facilities, etc. This is to show how future community needs would be met. And a funding plan. The GMA tries to instill a little realism in the process by requiring a funding plan. In the past, CIPs were long lists of public projects that were short on realistic funding sources. Part of this was because to utilize certain funding sources, such as the REIT, or get a higher score on a grant, the project had to be listed in the comprehensive plan. So there can be a tendency to include a project if the jurisdiction might do it or might try to get a grant. But the intent of the GMA is to provide a realistic funding plan, realizing that there are uncertainties that go with future funding or with funding future projects. The GMA requires a capital facilities element. In the Whatcom County Comp Plan, this element has several components. Chapter 4 sets the overall direction for the capital facilities planning. This chapter contains the goals and policies, but not specific projects or funding. Appendix E is the 20-year capital facilities plan. This plan looks at facilities needed to serve growth over a longer planning period, including generalized funding information. Appendix F is the 7-year capital improvement program for county projects. This is updated every 2 years as required by the comprehensive plan. As the name implies, it provides a near-term projects and funding sources to accomplish these projects. The CIP addresses 9 categories of county facilities, as shown on the screen. County departments submit proposed capital improvements to the county administration in the spring. The administration reviews these projects and decides which ones will make it into the CIP. PDS coordinates and collates all of the information in the CIP, so the projects you're seeing on this plan have been through the executive's office already. After the review by the Planning Commission, we'll take the CIP to County Council for review with any modifications and approval in the county budget, likely in November. We have provided a background information document highlighting the 10 capital improvement projects that are over $5 million each. The first 5 projects over $5 million are shown on this slide. And the other 5 projects over $5 million are shown on this slide. There are descriptions of these projects in the background information document in your packet. The last chapter of the CIP includes an accounting of costs for each capital improvement type and sums these costs for a total. On this slide, we're showing the overall costs from the last CIP and this CIP so you can see them side by side. As you can see, last year, or the last CIP was $362 million, and then the total for this new CIP is $431 million. We asked our GIS specialists to map the proposed improvements in the 2025 to 2031 CIP. Here are the parks projects as shown on screen. And here are the maintenance operations projects, all centered around Central Shop near Smith and Northwest. County government building projects. The projects are concentrated in Bellingham with the exception of the Northwest Annex campus. Finally, stormwater facilities are shown on this map. These facilities are concentrated in Lake Whatcom watershed and Birch Bay area. The GMA requires capital facilities element in local comprehensive plans. The county comp plan calls for an update of the CIP every other year. The last comprehensive update of the CIP was in 2022, so it's due for an update in 2024, along with the county budget. We are here tonight asking the Planning Commission recommendations prior to taking the CIP onto council for review and approval. I would note that we have county managers available to answer any specific questions in the CIP. And that's all I have. Do y'all have any questions?
I have a question, Kelly.
Sure, go ahead.
Lucas, can you go back to the page where you show what the total was for the previous CIP and what the total is now? It looks like it's different than what I see in the packet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
When I look at the crossed out CIP for 2023 and 2028, it says 428 million. Am I reading that wrong?
Sorry, let me look up.
Page 24.
Yeah, and his thing said 360,
Something like
361, 362,
So it's page
24, 24 on.
F-25 and page 24. 24.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second to pull up that document. I'm going to say before looking at it that, let's see, page 24, that says 428.
That's the term, right?
431. I'm going to venture to say that your packet is correct, and I made a mistake on my PowerPoint. I apologize.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? And these would be questions such as Commissioner Masseri just asked, is we are going to have a public hearing on this, and then we can delve in further. So any other questions by the commissioners? Okay, and then let's go ahead and open the public hearing. And I am going to let Eileen take over. Go ahead, Eileen.
Remind you that this meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. If you would like to provide a public comment on this topic, we will take comments in the room first. You are given 3 minutes to speak. We will put the timer on the screen. Will you write your name on the list and state your full name for the record, please?
My name is Ryan Bowman, resident of Whatcom County. Went over the CIP in general. We're 50 miles short on trails goal, and there's kind of like a back end, but we have other facilities sort of excuse for why we are not meeting that goal. We don't have enough attention towards senior center needs. We have an exceptional amount of people that are going into senior citizenship in the world, and that's going to be something we're not set up for, and we're not really addressing that in the coming years as these boomers age out. There is a disproportionate amount of the funding going towards adult jail beds as opposed to juvenile. There is 1/10 of the current space is juvenile. They're getting 0% of that funding. And I believe that if we're looking planning wise, these kids deserve to have some sort of investment, and $15 million would be 1/10 of that money. And that could go a long ways towards developing a plan so that we can prevent that repetitive cycle that quite often starts in juvenile. So it'd be nice to plan that way. the stormwater division, it'd be nice to start looking at, new stormwater techniques as opposed to using old systems. There's a lot of cool things that can be done through, native planting and things of that nature that I think we could really invest in, putting back in cultural identity here in Whatcom County. And that's my spiel. So if there's anything else, I got a couple other things, but I don't need to hash it out too much more than that. But put those into consideration, it'd be nice. I think it prioritizes better values for our future.
There are no other members of the public in the room, nor do I see any attendees online. Calvin?
Okay, thank you. I will close the public hearing. All right, commissioners, ready for discussion and to, if you have questions or proposals, amendments, now is the time. Commissioner Eisenberg, go ahead.
I just want to thank the public, Ryan, for speaking up about being proactive and productive in innovative ways to mitigate and adapt, both for cultural reasons and for climate reasons. So I would just like to put on the record, please consider having a conversation with facilities projects on how to mitigate and adapt to building codes from the International Residential Code and making sure that we not only decarbonize our built environment, but also decolonize, as our public comment mentioned, the use of native plants and revitalizing culture and language.
Okay, are there any discussions, more discussions, questions? And Lucas, I want to ask you a question because in the packet we got a couple of things blend together. What do you know what the last page of your part of tonight's meeting is on our packet? It was just hard for me at times to find the line on there.
The 19, that. At least that's what I found it was.
Oh, that's fine. Go ahead. And what was it?
The last page. 11, the Plantation Rifle Range lead remediation project.
It's
And
like 19.
what's
Page
the
19.
bottom, the number on the bottom right now?
19.
Okay. Let's see, let me open it a different way here. I think our packets they're containing some numbers like, we've got 2 of 24, but then we have some F-17 and things such as that, so.
You're gonna have the Fs, and then you're gonna have the pages through 24, and then you're gonna start just singled, or just regularly digital, not of anything, and end with the 19. That was a confusing way to say that, but
Okay,
1 through 19.
1 through 19.
all right, thank you. So commissioners, is there any discussion on this?
I see Jim Ham.
I don't think so.
Jim has his hand up.
And I'm fine if you would like to send this on.
Well,
Wait.
actually, I'd like to see staff go through it section by section. So we
Okay.
can, I mean, I've seen a couple of things I'd like to comment on, but if we go through it section by section and look at the spreadsheets with the projects and costs, other people may be stimulated to make inquiries or statements.
Okay. Could you handle that for us, Lucas?
Let me pull it up here. How's that? You all have chapter 1, the introduction?
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it. Okay. So that's the introduction. That's the growth management requirements that I talked about at the beginning. And how we're required to have at the very least a 6-year CIP for funding.
Pardon me, Lucas. I'm just looking. Let's cut to the money.
Sure. You just want the spreadsheets?
Yeah, I mean, I've got it up on my screen.
Sure.
There's different ones for each department, more or less, new buildings, maintenance, etc. So yeah, let's.
How's that?
Right. That was the first one I looked at. Yeah. So no pardon me. I'll just make a comment. Other people may or may not have comments that we can go on. Is seeing as 13.3 million of this is going to lead.
Okay.
We okay?
Go ahead, Commissioner Hanson.
Okay. For parks, trails, and facilities, since about a third of the whole budget is going to lead remediation, and they speak about the sources as the real estate investment tax and then grants. I'd be interested in how much of that is REIT and how much is grants, and if there was any consideration on a local tax on guns and ammo, since this is such a big part of the budget.
I don't know that I can answer that, but I know that there are some people from Parks on the Zoom with me, and they could maybe be able to answer parts of that.
Yes, this is Bennett Knox, Parks Director. I'm trying to show my video, but not working for me. There we go. So to answer your question, I think your first question was regarding the plantation range and options that we have for funding that. So of that amount, we have we do intend to apply for grants through ecology to cover a significant portion of that, and approximately 50%. And then the remainder is in plan to be REIT funding. We don't at the moment have any plans for the taxes that you mentioned, the fees, but that obviously is something we could consider. But for the capital program, it is a distribution between REIT and grants. And I will say, these are estimates. We haven't finalized the cost estimate for the cleanup. So this is kind of our best estimate. This is actually our worst case estimate at the moment in terms of cleanup based on our conversations and work with ecology.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner James. Just get the unmute button there, Commissioner James. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry. Given a budget this size, that seems like an outrageously high amount of investment on our part. Is there, for probably a fairly small number of people, it just seems inappropriate and out of balance. Could you share with us, the Parks Director, why we're spending this kind of money on such a small portion of utilization by our citizens?
Well, I think the short answer to that is we're required to clean up the lead that's been accumulated over the last 50 years. This really isn't this is funding for cleanup. This is not funding for operation and improvements to the facility. This is mandated by ecology. So we have an agreed order with them that mandates us to undertake this cleanup. So that is really the reason you're seeing this in the budget at this time.
And how is it that we got into this kind of position where we're spending $13 million on something like this at this point? I mean, how do we get there?
I think, that's a great question. I think the short answer is this cleanup, this should have been happening over the years. I think there's been certainly an evolution of regulations, but, there's certainly an admission that there should have been steps taken, years ago to begin to clean up this. We have known about lead contamination. So I think at this point, there's a history here. We've got, new staff on at this point, and we're dedicated to taking the right actions at this point. Can't really speak to the past of the facility other than this should have been undertaken years ago.
Along with this, we're making substantial investments, well over $1 million in the facility itself. Is that correct?
That is, so we have, the indoor range has been a facility that's been, has a history of use by the community. So there is, really, is a constituency for that in the community. And so our current view is that this is an amenity that the community does value, a significant portion. So we are looking to get the indoor range open next year. And so that's some of that is what you see.
Sure. Yeah, I'm both a gun owner and a physician, and the lead is a real issue. I mean, any amount of lead decreases the intelligence of children. And if this is getting into the environment, it's a very substantial issue. Has there been any studies to evaluate the actual health impacts of the existing condition?
Well, we have worked with the health department and ecology on water quality testing to try to show what's the impact within the extent of the range. So I can't point to human health studies, but we're certainly obligated to clean up the facility in keeping with the current regulatory standards. And so that is what we're working with ecology to do.
And has there been a public process? I believe there has been a public process about keeping
Yes.
this open or not. Could you please summarize what the tenor?
Right. So as part of the agreed order, we have had, I believe, 2 public meetings to discuss results. And then we operate a website that we keep information up. Ecology also has a process where they've taken public comment, and that's been put back into the process as well. So that's all been happening really over the last 2 years, primarily when we have entered into discussions with ecology.
And that over $1 million in future investment, that's something that's similar to other counties? Or why do we think that's a good idea since we've accumulated this $13 million debt over time?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand your question. Could you maybe restate that?
Why isn't this a private facility? It would seem that since it's relatively few people that utilize the facility, and since it is something that obviously we're paying $13 million to remediate what we didn't manage well, why are we investing more than $1 million going forward in something that may well have additional problems? Is there a process that's been engaged in around that, or is that?
Well, if I understand your question, I think there's maybe 2. There's the cleanup portion, and then there's just there's operation of a recreational amenity. And so I think to some degree I need to separate the 2 in terms of the $1 million that we're putting into the facility for programming of the indoor range and getting that up to speed and mitigating the HVAC system so that it is safe for participants. That's a programmatic element, and we do have a constituency that utilizes that facility. So moving forward, in the bigger picture, depending on how we have how the remediation goes, there is going to be a process for determining the future of other elements of the range. So I think you can look forward to that. We're not at that point yet because we haven't finished the reporting on the cleanup itself, but that is a subsequent phase, and we're certainly going to come back to council, to the Planning Commission, and to the public for discussions on those elements in the coming year and a half, hopefully.
Yeah, just a point of information, it's close to $1.5 million, right? The future investment?
Well, which investment specifically? So if you're talking about the outdoor range, once we have the cleanup completed and what that means for the future of that portion, that's a question. We don't have those estimates yet on the outdoor range.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate the insights. I've been interested in this, just didn't know really the full background. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Hanson.
Just a quick one for Commissioner James's. benefit since I was here 2 years ago when the same issue came up. And one of the factors is if we don't provide this facility for people to do safe shooting, they're more likely to be doing unsafe shooting all over the county.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I move on to the next table?
Yes, that'd be great, Lucas.
Oops, sorry, too big here. Government buildings and site projects.
Hey, any questions, commissioners? Go ahead, Lucas, and move on to the next.
Let's see, sheriff's office projects. Is that big enough on the screen here? Everybody see it well enough?
It's working great for me.
Okay.
But okay. Any questions, Commissioner Hanson?
Sorry, I was trying to let other people stick their hand up on the last screen. Why do we need a construction coordinator rather than having staff coordinate construction?
Are you talking about the government facilities one?
Yeah, I did have a question there, but I didn't want to stick my nose in immediately. Yeah, why can't staff coordinate construction? It seems that would be appropriate to have a contract coordinator for the county.
Sure, I believe we have Rob Nye here that can answer that.
And good evening, Planning Commission, Rob Knight, Facilities Manager. That is a county staff member. That was their former title. It's actually now it's called a Special Projects Manager for construction. But those are project managers that run different construction.
Oh, okay. So it's staff. It's not a contract. Okay, thanks so much.
No worries.
Okay, Lucas, why don't we go ahead and move on again?
Sure. Let's see, were there any questions on the sheriff's office projects? Sorry.
Okay, I'm not seeing any. Go ahead.
Great. Adult corrections, table 13.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything there. Go ahead. Okay, and Commissioner Hanson.
Sorry, it takes me a minute to go. You gotta go put 3 buttons and then others and blah, blah, blah to raise your hand. So I see you have one as other sources for both the new jail and the facilities. So I'm wondering why you can't be more specific about where the funding's coming from. I thought we passed a bond issue, et cetera. It seems kind of vague to just put other. Shouldn't you know?
I don't know that I can answer that question. Rob, can you?
Well, I can do my best. So I think that the Parks Director kind of hit the nail on the head. And most of these projects, we are putting together estimates far before the projects are ever defined or we have architectural plans. And so we put a bond together based on a lot of square footages, assessments and understanding of what the jail size would be. If for some reason we get to the end of this project and it may cost more, we may need to seek other revenue sources to help fill that gap. And so when they put other sources, it's maybe we receive some grants for the way we design the building HVAC, or we put solar on it or something along those lines. By putting that other sources, that allows us to bring those into the fold of the project if we obtain them. Hopefully that helps answer that question. It's kind of like a catch-all in case of future.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see what we have in, what we anticipate using plus other, rather than just a vague basket of whatever. But I know you guys have a lot of work to do, and I appreciate all the effort and diligence you put into it. So I don't want to be picky on you. I just want to be informed.
Yeah. Again, it's awfully hard for us to put together cost proposals on things that are yet to be designed. So we do the best we can and also try to anticipate future needs.
Commissioner Desmani.
I'd like to address Commissioner Hanson's question. Usually when a community goes for a levy, the project is planned, quantified, and then the levy is goes to ballot. That didn't happen to be the case here, and I will leave it at that.
All right, Lucas.
All right. I think we were on. Stormwater. Oh boy.
Commissioner Hanson.
Well, since Citizen Bowman brought up the question of the juvenile treatment, and there's no funding to enhance or add additional juvenile treatment, how are we planning to meet those needs with no additional funding?
Sheriff, I saw the sheriff was on here earlier. I don't know if sheriff wants to discuss that. What I would say is that's a policy direction, and this is what we have in front of you is a result of previous policy questions. And so that's how this list was presented. And I don't know if the sheriff wants to expand.
I'm actually trying to get my camera working, and I don't know if it's working because I can't see you. So
It is. Thank you.
yes,
We're
Hi,
seeing you
so
fine.
Looking good.
great. So can you actually repeat the question? I heard juvenile division.
Oh, the question is, and this is a follow-up on a citizen comment, is given the ongoing and perhaps greater needs for juvenile, I guess, incarceration, treatment, whatever, all the things that you're doing, why is there no provision in your budget for additional needs in that regard?
Sure. So I certainly wish I could speak to the juvenile court, but the juvenile court is actually under the supervision of the Superior Court. So it's a separate division from the actual sheriff's office. It's a separate division, it's a separate budget, it's separate rules, and also there's separate laws as well. So I wish I had more to offer, but that's actually under the Superior Court.
Okay, thank you. So they have their own budget that's not covered here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome.
All right, Lucas, can we move to the next one?
Yeah. On to total costs here. I believe that's the last one in the new CIP.
What's the page number at the bottom on that?
F25.
Ah, thank you. Okay, is there another one? Do you have another one, Lucas?
I don't have anything more after that.
Okay. All right, so we had a public hearing and this is the work session, and commissioners, what would you like to do? So Lucas, I'll ask you, what do you need from us right now?
I believe forward this to the county council with a recommendation of approval.
Okay, thank you. Am I seeing Commissioner Van Dalen's hand up?
Oh,
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
Before we proceed, I just had one question that came up as a public comment that we received, which is that there are aspects of the capital improvement plan that may be incomplete because an EIS for the comp plan isn't complete. So I just wanted staff to address that comment.
Can you say that again for me?
Let me pull up the comment. But basically, there was a comment that came in that was raising a question about the appropriateness of the reviewing and approving the capital improvement plan, given that some work related to the comp plan wasn't complete.
Right.
Could you just how does staff interpret that comment?
So we have to, per the comprehensive plan, we have to update the CIP every 2 years either way. So often we'll do amendments to it every year, but we have to update it now because we have to update it every 2 years per the CIP. I understand we're doing a comprehensive plan next year, and we may very well make amendments to the CIP next year after the comprehensive plan is through, but we have to do this now per the current
That makes sense.
plan.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted it to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the capital improvement plan.
I'll second it.
Okay, and Commissioner Desmani, would you, and I appreciate both of you, would you modify that a little bit?
Yes, to include the
I think
findings.
there
of
may
fact.
be the finding of facts, if you can add those in, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and recommend approval to the county council for the capital improvement plan with the findings of fact.
Commissioner James, are you fine with that?
Sure.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve the capital improvement plan along with the findings of facts. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Hanson,
Yes, yes.
Deshwani,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mosseri,
yes.
Van Dalen,
yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
Okay. So next we have a work session, and it's the proposed amendments on Whatcom County Code Title 22, and Amy Keenan is the Special Projects Manager. Amy, would you take over?
Actually, I'm going to do it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Cliff.
It is online, just in case there are questions. But if you recall, at your last meeting, Amy gave a great overview of all the changes that we need to do to comply with 5290. And then I had given you all the code amendments, but we had gotten a letter from the BIWC kind of late in the day that we weren't able to have reviewed. We've now done that. I sent out a copy of the staff report again with the changed amendments, and then the letter from the BIWC in which I had embedded PDS's responses to that. So some of their comments I thought, you know, were good, and we fixed a few things to make it a little clearer for them and for everybody. Some of them we didn't agree with, but I've laid those out all out in the letter as to which ones we've changed. So if you need me to go over the code again, I can, but I'm going to assume everybody's familiar with it. But and you have held your public hearing on this. So tonight we're looking for a recommendation from him.
Cliff, I want to ask one question, and I won't be able to, I've got notes several places, and I'm not sure I can give the exact part, but I was having a couple of questions about when you're doing a wetland review.
Yep.
And I wasn't sure if I was reading it correct, whether that is a requirement for all properties that it gets looked at, or if it's dependent on any staff observation. And I'll go ahead.
So generally, you know, if people, you know, if developers are involved or people who know kind of what they're doing in the land development area, they know, you know, they'll assume that they'll have an understanding that there's going to be critical areas on a piece of property that they're looking at, and so they'll generally come in with the reports already done. But for others, you know, single family homeowners, just your average Joe, they may not know. So the way we've developed this is then that they could come in and ask us to do a cursory review, which we look at existing information, our GIS system with the wetland overlay and all that kind of stuff, and then possibly even go look at the property. If it turns out there are no critical areas, then they get to move on to their permitting process. And if there are, we say, okay, well, you got to do your report.
Okay, I appreciate that. And when I was reading it, I couldn't quite pick up that there was the ability for staff to go out and take a look.
Yeah, in fact, I think the code says that, you know,
okay,
it mentions a site visit.
I probably missed it, and I will kind of give myself a little grace here, but the reason this is a really big question to me, and I appreciate what you had to say. That's what I wanted to hear. But a few years back, I put one house on 2 acres, and I'm in at a different community, and I'm in another county, and I'm in at the counter, and they're telling me that they believe my property has wetlands on it, and they wanted a soil sample every 10 feet in every direction. And it was around 600 holes and soil samples with a geotech to analyze every one of them.
How long ago was this?
This was in the 90s.
Yeah, well, all those staff are gone.
Well, it wasn't Whatcom County, but the 3 test holes that I had to do cost $2,200, and we were looking at 500 or 600 test holes. And a staff member walked through behind it, and as they're telling me I have to do this before I can fly, a staff person walked through behind and just said, "Oh, I've been out on that property, it's bone dry." And the counter person said, "Oh, you don't need to do any of that then."
Well, that's good.
I was looking at this with a critical eye.
My personal preference is the Florsham test. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
That's where you get a group of lawyers and you line them up on your property and you start walking out on there, and wherever they stop, that's the edge of a wetland, named after their shoes, the Florshams.
Oh, the Florsham.
Very good. Okay, what do you need from us tonight, Cliff and Amy?
Basically just a recommendation to council that you guys are satisfied with this and that they should adopt it. Your typical thing, but again, if you have any other questions, I'm here.
Could you highlight the changes made in response to the input you got from the business community?
Sure. Let me see. So do you want me to throw the code up and actually show it to you?
You could, that'd be great.
Okay, let me do that.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first one is in section 0205. 22, 522, 22. I got the right one up. All right, got to get there. View navigation 22. Let's see. So in this section, just rearrange some of the words like they had suggested. In one or in number 5, here it is. So I don't remember exactly which words it were, but I changed the grammar a little bit to make it clear. And I think I indented these so that,
Read more clearly, sure.
Yeah. 23, let's see. So yeah, basically this, I rearranged this a little bit to make it a little clearer, sort of as they had suggested. 24.1, I took care of the typo. It wasn't a typo, it was a bad link, but so section 2 and 3. Well, that's 24, sorry. Section 2 and 5, I've amended. Get rid of that literal enforcement thing. And got rid of one of the words. The code had pecuniary in it, and nobody really knew what that meant. So I used the definition, which was just financial and monetary, but it was kind of redundant. So they suggested we drop one of those. 29.3. Added council in here as they suggested. 2, 3. Just rearrange this a little bit, I guess, to make it clear as they suggested. The words, I don't know exactly which words I changed because it all shows up red when I change it.
Right.
30. Oh, this was just a grammatical difference of opinion. I didn't change that. And they had suggested that we have a deadline for submitting comments on a project. And as we pointed out, you can comment through a public hearing, like as did somebody at your meeting tonight. So it's kind of hard to have a deadline on some of those responses. 74B, 74. So this is under notice of application 4B. What did I say? Oh, yeah, just cleared up some of the language in here as they had suggested. And the rest, we didn't make changes to their comments, but we did explain why we didn't in the letter.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ellen, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Cliff, on page 32, 22.05.08,
Yes.
down at 2B, one of the ones that they made a comment about that you I know you responded to it. But I do think that it reads a little odd that you say there's 90 days and then it followed up with a however, you have 60 days and another 30 days would be added. Seems like at least to me, if it said you have 60 days with an additional 30 for a total of 90, makes more sense. Is there a reason you don't want to do it that way?
I guess we were just trying to, knowing how long it takes people to get stuff in, usually it just seemed like 2 months was kind of short. And so we thought 90 days would be more appropriate. The 5290, the language, however, the applicant is non-responsive, blah, 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 for more than 60 days, that's straight out of 5290. So 5290 had given people only 60 days to respond to an OR. We just thought 90 would be more appropriate.
But do they have 90 days to start, or do they have 60 days and then you get an additional 30 days for a total of 90? I know it ends up being 90, but just having them both there, I know they both equal 90, it's a little confusing.
Well, so that 30 days isn't added to their time frame, it's added to our time frame. So it just stops the clock for an additional 30 days if they've been non-responsive. So it's not like it's not like they have 60 plus 30. It's either 60 and then if they're non-responsive, we add another 30 days to our clock, or the applicant has 90 days, and if they're non-responsive, we add another 30 days to our clock.
Okay, so those two things they're separate.
Yeah, they're different days. They're their clock versus our clock.
Okay.
Yeah, because where it says an additional 30 days shall be added to the permit review time periods provided in 2205-130. That refers to
I see. So they have up to 60, or up to 90, but if they go over the 60, it triggers that 30 additional days that you get.
Right.
Okay. I understand now. It's obviously I was confused reading it, so it's a little confusing, but.
Hey, Commissioner Desmani.
Okay, I've got a question about the acronym NOAR. Could you remind me what that acronym means, first of all?
Notice of additional requirements.
Okay. So the Perry Eskridge comments on behalf of the building industry that that appears that that notice is provided in times where the reviewer at the county has just not properly read the application, and makes the assertion that the lack of careful review by staff at the county should not place a burden or delay on the applicant. What are your feelings about that? And what's the response of the county?
And this one I am going to turn over to Amy only because she's involved in the permitting, and I have not been involved in permitting here. So Amy, can you answer Commissioner Desmani's question?
So right now there is no consequence or of anything if you don't reach your 120 days or make that determination. I would say that there are some notice of additional requirements that when we receive the information back, it's incomplete, and that's difficult for us to review. I don't know if there's NORs that are going out that are unnecessary. We're generally asking for information that we need. I know that NORs are going out late, and that's one of the things that we can fix, but not through the code. So that's what we're looking at, some of those internal improvements that we were speaking about originally. One of those things that we do NORs on probably the most is that critical areas review, and that's why we're looking to do that up front. So while there are code requirements that are part of this code to meet timeframes, we're also looking on the internal processes as well to clear those inconsistencies up.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm feeling that what the developer community is looking for is some kind of a way of encouraging a performance standard on review, and that's what the original legislation's intent is. Suppose that the original legislation doesn't get specific and leaves it up to probably up to individual jurisdictions to figure that out and at a level of detail. But I'm always interested in performance related measures to help government be more efficient. And so isn't there some way of capturing that intent as it relates to notices for additional information?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Commissioner Desmond, I was gonna say, I think the 5290, what we're talking about are really the code changes here. One of the big things that this is gonna mean for us as a department is changing a lot of our practices and our processes internally. And so those are all things that are under conversation. Those are all things we're looking at. Those are all things that we're doing. How do we shift our performances to provide that service in a timely manner, in a consistent manner across the board? And so those are all things that we're looking at and trying to make those adjustments to be more consistent in our reviews. And I think that's part of the complaint that you heard from the building industry.
Right, and it it could be a perception. It may not be reality. It's kind of like what Amy's wondering too. But I would like to suggest something that might be a way to resolve. I mean, like, look, over a period of time, if the developer community, the people who apply for permits, are able to sustain an incorrect or correct belief about the lack of performance in review and the request for additional information in the notice, that's not in anybody's interest. So maybe a way to broach that potential gap is in your reporting, because the 5290 requires reporting, to keep track of all notices for additional information and some kind of a reason for the additional information request. And that way, in a few years or in a year or two, you can go back and look at all the requests for additional information and be able to assess that, oh, okay, this one was, you just needed to look on the back side of the page, or maybe, you know what I'm saying? That you can audit that more effectively. And maybe you're already doing that.
I think that is part of, in our reporting, we will have to sort of decipher how many NORs we are issuing. We're hoping that number drops fairly dramatically, is the first thing that we're hoping. And then secondly, yeah, we need to, internally, if not publicly, we certainly need to look at those NORs that are going out and make sure they're for all the right reasons. And I think probably even more important, from what I can see, is that they're really clear in what we're asking for, because sometimes what we're in our technical terms are asking for is not very clear to the layperson. So I think that may be one of the issues as well.
And in the reporting, there will be more traceability then of requests for additional information as going forward.
Yeah, because one of the things that we have to do when we report is we have to count the amount of time the permit is in our hands and stop counting the amount of time when the permit is in the applicant's hands. So therefore, we're going to figure out how many NORs we've issued and what that looks like. Okay.
I have one other question. I don't know if, Chair, if I should go ahead with that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Desmani.
The first item that is on the list of comments from the Building Industry Association reads as, currently the WCC has a 14-day requirement within which the county must determine an application to be complete. SB 5290 extends this to 28 days. And staff is proposing to amend to comply with state law. So there was some subsequent comments about the 14-day limit. also complies with state law. And I don't think you addressed that comment, or maybe you did and I just didn't understand.
Well, 28 days is the amount of time that is allowed by the state law, and we will be consistent with probably every other jurisdiction in Washington State if we can amend that to 28 days. But more importantly, we're actually sort of moving a part of the procedures that we do now. We do what's called a pre-screen. And it's where an applicant comes to us with a building permit or a site plan or some part of the building, single family residential building permit process. And we review this now digitally, and we have it come in, we give it a case number, we route it to planners and building folks and natural resource folks, and they tell you what you're going to need to do to move forward in the process. And unbeknownst to us, we've been doing this process for years now, but this year we decided to put it in our permit tracking system so we could count how many we were doing, and we were blown away. By this point this year, we've done over 700 of these, and we're doing them for free. And it's taking an immense amount of staff time. So what we're hoping to do is shifting that pre-screen process, where we make sure you're submitting all of the right information, where we're getting all of that information to you ahead of time, into that 28 days. Our goal is to not necessarily issue more determination of incompletes, but it's really to make sure that when a project comes in, it is complete. Because when a project is either determined complete because it's been in 14 days or we missed something, that just causes a notice of additional requirements. So we're really looking for that 28 days to help. That said, it's not like multiple people are going to touch it in that 28 days. So it is very likely that we'll have those out relatively quickly. We aren't going to sit on these. That doesn't help us. That doesn't make the process go any faster. So it's a maximum of 28 days. I hope most never get there, but it's really to give us that time to make sure those projects are complete when they come in.
Thank you. That's a very helpful answer, because, and I agree very much on the principle of in any kind of project activity, upfront time, upfront planning, upfront thinking always saves you time, everybody involved down the road. So sorry, Perry, I agree with staff on this one too.
I should mention that both Mark and Amy went over and had lunch with BIWC today, and
okay,
they seem to be satisfied with things, according to Mark.
good. This is an excellent example of staff really being responsive, and not that you aren't usually. I just am complimenting it because I see it. It's really a great example.
Kelvin, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, so now that the code will require that after 3 NOARs, you either approve or deny the permit. If it gets denied, what is the process for the applicant? Where, if they want to then reapply or something, where would they start back over at?
I think we'd really have to review the project and see. I mean, there's always an appeal option. So that is one, if we deny the project after a third notice of additional requirements, then there is an appeal option where you can go to the hearing examiner. If we denied the project because, say there was a building component that we couldn't agree on, would be unusual, but say that. We would not make you restart at the critical areas review because that's already approved and that site plan's approved. I think this would be far and few between on sort of residential type projects, especially if we take the critical areas aspect out of the site plan review and the building permit. So I think it's our intent to ensure that we are super clear when we issue those notice of additional requirements, and that we are very upfront from the very first one about the information we need. The other part of this is that after the second notice of additional requirements is issued, we're required to hold a meeting with the applicant within 14 days of that notice of additional requirements. And I think that might be able to help clear up some of those. We're trying to say something, the applicant is reading it, and where's that middle ground? Or are we not being clear? Are we not being be very clear with what we're asking, and or does the applicant understand it? So we're really hoping that one, when the notice of addition or the critical areas is taken out, and with a meeting with the applicant, we can really very rarely even get to 3 no-rs. But again, to answer your question, I think it would be a case-by-case basis, but you could certainly reapply. There's nothing in the code that says you can't.
Commissioners, what would you like to do? Commissioner Desmani.
Well, if there's no further questions or discussion, I'd like to make a motion to recommend adoption of the not capital improvement plan to the let's see, what do we call this?
Amendments to WWC Title 22 to enact blah, blah, blah.
To comply with the 5290,
I need to type it down.
Senate Bill 5290. With the condition that Steve Roberge must stay with PDS.
Ah, there you go.
Okay, let's just take a minute to make sure we get that motion clarified.
Try that again.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the amendments to Title 22.
It's not just 22, it's 20 as well.
Title 20 and Title 22 to comply with Senate Bill 5290, along with the findings of fact. And I guess I'll leave the Steve Roberge out of it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Second is Commissioner Hanson. Is to I don't even want to try to say all of it, but to comply with the recently passed state laws. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there is no discussion, Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Van Dalen,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mosseri,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Yes.
Deshmani,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
Okay, and Commissioner Desmani, you have your hand up still. Do you have more comments?
No, I just forgot to put it down.
Okay. We have, there's one more thing here. We're unfinished business, and I'm kind of, this is new business, but we received an email today about attendance. And Steve, I believe I have heard that the Planning Commission itself weighs in on Planning Commission member attendance. Am I accurate on that?
Yeah, that's how we read the rules, it's section 2.4 of your rules, and that is how we read them. Yes.
Okay, and we have some great people on here, and it's really a privilege to work with everyone. I think we're aware that we are seeing a bit of some attendance deficiency and I would like us to think about it over before the next Planning Commission and come prepared to figure out how to come to a resolution on it. So is everybody okay with that? Okay. Yep. And unless someone else, that's all I have to say on it. Is there anybody else want to speak?
I would just like to know what our bylaws or what rules we have are in that regard so that we can give input congruent with those specifications.
Okay. Okay, and Steve Roberge, you sent an email out earlier today about it, if I remember correctly. It was out today. I recall something about the rules. Were those attached to it?
Yes, the rules were attached. It's, and the section also, section 2.4.
Okay,
And so, and that was actually quoted in the email, but the rules were attached also.
okay. I thought that they were, but I wanted to clarify and speak to you directly on it. Make sure I had it accurate. So is everyone okay with that then?
I've got a question, Kelvin.
Go ahead, Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, looking at the absences, there's definitely some people that have different trends than others. Has there been any communication with some people that are having issues, and is there any reasons given or no responses?
So we have, what we generally do is we send out an email the Monday before, as you all know, to ask if you'll be able to attend. If we don't get a response, what we've been doing recently, the last few months, is I've been then calling or emailing folks that we haven't received a response from. Sometimes I get a response back, sometimes I don't. But generally, if we get a response back, we generally announce that and let people know we've got a response back from folks.
But even before then, as secretary, it was always, if there was no answer, I would be calling, emailing. Sometimes I would get a response, sometimes I won't. And then if there's usually an excuse, I would let Kelvin know. So that way it's excused or not excused. In this case, there hasn't been any response back.
And this may be just something to think about when we look at the rules next time. This may be a section that the commission wants to look at modifying how this piece works. I'll just flag that for your future conversation. And there's lots of ways that can be structured differently, and we can look at different examples of how other folks do that.
Okay.
I say I won't be here, but you, we can set that all up for you in advance, and we can set that up.
We can bring it back.
Cameo.
Visitor, you know.
Sorry, I've been searching my incoming emails and I cannot find that one. Maybe if someone would be so kind as to send another copy of that. I'm sorry, it got lost somewhere.
Certainly.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other comments? Any other business?
Yeah, I have one item.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Desmani.
And it's I want to just bring it up and then maybe plan to follow up with Steve before he leaves, or someone from staff before they leave. And there's this, I'm very involved with water-related discussions around the county, the adjudication, private wells situation, so on and so forth. And I'd like to figure out how to help address a problem that's showing up in many forums around the county as it relates to water use and providing private wells, which are non-regulated, and the water rights implications of that and the water use implications of that. So typically the Planning Commission doesn't initiate things like this, but it's such an important issue. I feel responsible to bring up this issue of water usage, private wells, and ag zoning. And we have a good group of people in the Planning Commission to maybe fit this somehow into our agenda, potentially with the support of staff and the county council. So I wanted to bring that up and wanted to follow up on that in a later time.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Desmani.
So if someone from staff can tell me who I should talk to, that'd be great.
Yeah, Commissioner Desmani, perhaps, I'll send you an email tomorrow with a contact from health, and they can talk a little bit about the rules that are in place now since post-HERS that have placed additional restrictions on those permitting of wells. But they can give you more information on what currently is in place, how that works.
Right, anybody else? Okay, thank you, commissioners. The meeting is adjourned.
Well-run meeting, Kelvin. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner
I
James Frank. I appreciate that.
Appreciate your efficiency and effectiveness in moving things along.
Oh,
Really
thank
nice.
you. And
I want to
I'm interrupting you. I have a quick question. Sometime I'd like to give you a phone call.
Oh, sure, anytime, yeah. Do
Or
you have my
or you
number?
can buzz me.
Yeah.
You're busier than I am, I think.
I was just, usually I go abroad a fair amount during the year and I haven't been out of the country in 5 years. So I was in Kathmandu
Yeah, I grew up there.
and
Okay.
East Timor, and Indonesia, and Thailand, and Taiwan. So
Well,
only 3 weeks is pretty good.
okay. Well, I will try to give you a call.
Anytime,
One of those
yeah.
things
you
All
bet.
right. You
Thank
take
you.
care. Good evening, everybody.
Good night.